Hello, my name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and welcome to another episode of our Driving Tomorrow Conversations with Industry Leaders, where we explore the latest developments and newest innovations in the world of artificial intelligence. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Charlie Fink, consultant, columnist, and author covering AI, extended reality, and the Metaverse for Forbes. With a career spanning technology, media, and entertainment, Charlie has shaped the evolution of digital transformation for decades. He is the author of critically acclaimed books on augmented reality and spatial computing, a consultant, and an educator at Chapman University and ASU's LA-based graduate program in emerging media. In today's interview, we'll explore how Charlie's bold predictions about AI-driven job losses, the evolving tech landscape, and whether we're on the verge of another stock market boom. We'll also explore the role of spatial computing, breakthroughs in computer vision, and how robotics are shaping the future of automation. So thank you for joining us today, Charlie.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad you're here. All right, you've mentioned before that AI advancements could push the overall unemployment rate to 8 to 10% by the end
Yeah.
of the year.
We're in a very interesting moment,
Yeah.
partly because of the political situation and
Oh, yeah.
partly because of the, let's say, technology industry changing its politics. And it has had a dramatic effect so far. And obviously, we see the federal government being changed, and we don't really completely understand what those changes are ultimately going to mean. Obviously, right now, a lot of it is just for show, people losing their jobs, but potentially the federal government could cut 500,000 jobs,
Wow.
which would significantly affect unemployment. The other thing is, there was a moment in the 80s and the 90s when computers began to replace analog devices, and people either retrained or adapted or they left the workforce. And in fact, what happened was that these new machines gave tremendous efficiency and abilities to workers to do things that they never could do before.
Yeah.
And so during that period, there was relatively high unemployment because people had not adapted completely.
Yeah.
So we're going to see a bit of that. The
Okay.
other thing we're going to see, though, is that it's not going to be low skilled, low trained employees. It's going to be people like you and me. And it's not so easy for you and me to find replacement work. So I think it is entirely plausible that unemployment will be high single digits by the end of the year. At the same time, those companies are going to yield extraordinary savings because an expert programmer can do the work of four programmers now.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
Yeah,
what are the other three programmers for?
exactly.
So, there's going to be a lot of now. Fortunately for you programmers listening to this show, specifically if you know a bit about AI and how to use it and apply it to your craft, you should be fine. But if you don't, if you're just a guy who does Python code for this and that, you are really like in the class with graphic designers.
Yeah.
Like they just may not need what you do anymore.
Mhm.
That's certainly what happened to HTML people and Oracle 8 people in the 90s. They were in high demand. By the 2000s, all their work had been automated.
Yeah, same thing here. What other sectors do you think should be concerned, and how can individuals maybe mitigate their risk?
Again, like computers, this isn't one industry. I'm
Right.
here in Los Angeles and everybody is decrying its impact on the entertainment industry. And I laugh because, of course, it seems so big here, but it is so irrelevant in the rest of the country,
Mhm.
where there are real businesses and real industries
That's right.
that are going to harvest the benefits of this new technology. But again, I don't think it's going to be the guys on the assembly line necessarily. I think you're talking about people who are in accounting and management. And I think you can, because of AI, you can remove layers of management pretty easily. Because again, a lot of what layers of management do is collect, organize, and analyze information.
Yeah.
So that's something that can be automated. It didn't used to be because it required too much reasoning. Is this a this or is this a that? Computers were terrible at that. Now they're really good at it.
Yes. Yeah. How do
So
you see those shifts influencing the workforce skills? And can they do anything to get trained or anything
Sure,
like
of
that?
course.
Okay.
There are two things. One is, yes, get trained on AI, and there are
Yeah.
lots of online courses and lots of ways to do that. And when AI came on the scene in November 2022, I said, this is the end of the metaverse.
Yeah.
I was riding the metaverse gravy train for years because my first book was Charlie Fink's Metaverse, and it was a very popular book. So when Mark Zuckerberg announced the metaverse was here in 2021, my phone started ringing off the hook. But at the end of 2022, when I saw ChatGPT for the first time, I was like, oh, no one's going to be interested in the metaverse anymore. And it was always a little bit tenuous, to be perfectly honest. But I had to throw myself into AI, and I spent over a year taking those courses. I don't really do anything else other than study technology, particularly the areas that you enumerated that I cover, IXR and the metaverse. Of course, everything right now is about AI, although it's having interesting potential impacts on XR, which has been struggling a bit to become, I would say it is mainstream technology, but it is niche technology at the moment. What people can do as individuals, first of all, like I said, you have to be an expert in something.
Yeah.
If you're not an expert in something, then it almost doesn't matter about it. But if you are, let's say, somebody who is good at something, AI can help you be great at it. And I think a lot of the impact we're going to see is on these very discrete workflows that exist within offices, within departments, that all has a singular output. But what people do to create that output, I think, is going to change both in personal ways, in the way that Alicia does her job or Charlie does his job,
Yeah.
and also in larger ways, which would be the ways our editors would want our jobs to be done. And our editors are going to, I have trained my replacement. An editor could walk into Forbes right now. They have 400 contributors and just cull that by 75%, not give any of the existing people a raise.
Yeah.
And because they'd be like, you're doing the same amount of work to put out 4 times as much content. Let's go.
Yeah.
Put it out.
Yeah.
And
It
so if I get saved, I probably would be part of the 75%. But let's say I was saved. Now all of the benefit of ChatGPT having reduced my workload by 75% is gone.
It is so hard, I think, for employees to justify that's great. They're more productive. They should be able to do more
Well,
things.
yeah, if you're more
But
productive, you should get paid more. But that's
right.
not the way the world is anymore.
No,
So
it doesn't seem
because
like it.
because those benefits go to the shareholders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is why I said to you when we were talking before the show that I thought we were in for a extremely strong stock market for the next year and a half, unless the things that are being done to the global economy end up being way more destructive than we predict.
Yes. That's what I was
And
wondering.
and one of the things holding the stock market back right now, in my opinion, is that really could happen, that these guys are incompetent. They're going to miss really big things. They're going to seem little now, and there'll be a problem. There'll be a disaster, and it'll blow up to be 100 times bigger than it would have been. And the house of cards will start to collapse with recriminations and people blaming each other and trying to deflect. And there's a lot of uncertainty, and that is bad for the stock market. Assuming there is some relevant stability, the stock market should be very strong because this is a very pro-business administration. Taxes will remain low. There's not going to be any regulation. There's not going to be regulation of anything. There's not going to be regulation of drugs. There's not going to be regulation of food. There's not going to be regulation of consumer prices. So anything goes. It should be great for business.
Yeah.
It's like open season on the American public. On, let's go. There's no
That's right.
robocall them, do whatever. And AI is not always used for, AI doesn't care how it's used.
Yeah.
So I think, the cyber criminals, tax cheats, it's going to be mayhem. It may end up being good for the stock market, but instability is never great for the stock market. And again, the unforeseen consequences, the unintended consequences is what always get us.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just feeling like the other day, all this stuff that's going on politically and in our the lack of regulations and things like that, it almost feels like a new economy is going to emerge. It's not going to exist anymore the way that we know it. So everything.
When you say a new economy, tell me what you mean by that. See, this is a problem when you interview the interviewer.
Yeah. I don't know enough about economics to speak on this confidently, but it just feels like there's a shift coming and how we normally operate isn't going to work anymore.
I think that you put that extremely well.
Okay, good.
As I said, the workflows are going to change. Things that were very labor intensive in the past aren't going to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is like that moment in the 90s when the world fully shifted over to the computer and the internet, and the stock market went on an unprecedented run. They, for a hot moment, got rid of the deficit. That could happen.
Yeah, hopefully.
Could happen. Certainly the employees who lose their jobs are going to experience it a different way, but
Yeah.
let's be hopeful. But I am fearful that the unintended consequences of AI and also what is happening with international trade and the US government slimming down so dramatically. Let's not forget, not only is the US government the biggest employer, the US government's also the biggest customer.
Right.
So the effects of that hopefully will not be too dramatic. But we haven't done this before.
Yeah,
So this is
that's
an
the thing.
experiment. It's funny, I was talking to my class, one of my classes yesterday, and we study emerging media. And of course, where do you start with emerging media? So I start with when legacy media transition to digital media. So that's where the course starts with emerging media. We start with the invention of the personal computer and the internet, and then we get to social media. We'll go on and talk about AI and other things as the semester goes on. We do it chronologically over the past 35 years.
Yeah.
And we were talking about social media, and the benefits of social media are incredible. The way it increases our connections, the way that it eliminates gatekeepers. So something like the video of George Floyd could not be suppressed.
Yeah.
So those are great things. The negative consequences, however, involve putting children in jeopardy. These platforms are hives of cyber crime, human trafficking, and people in third world countries posting unspeakable things. And so now we're not going to moderate this anymore. We're not going to care about it. And we're just going to provide a platform for promoting it. There'll be no regulation. No one's supposed to care. Social media has also turned news and the world generally into a business of opinions, which it didn't
Yes.
used to be. It used to be a world of verifications. Like I would declare something as the truth and you would verify it.
And now everybody's opinion is fact. So that's
Exactly.
it.
We got rid of the difference between lies and facts. When I was at AOL in the 90s, we were so excited by the death of gatekeepers. Voice of the people will never be repressed.
Yeah.
Now people's voices can reach around the world. And never once did any of those smart guys that I work with, Ted Leonsis, Bob Pittman, Mark Andreessen, never once did any of them, or any of us, I should say, because I was there and certainly had my role in it. None of us said, if the truth can never be suppressed, what about the lies?
It's a good point.
I,
And
I
here we
think
are.
our downfall was giving lies equal time with the truth.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to be for political opinions to get equal time. But now it no longer has that meaning. It means equal time with whatever crazy thing I decide to say in order to create conflict, benefit me. And I'm gonna anyway. Let's talk about technology,
Yeah.
but it is interesting that politics is all and technology have come together, and that is actually something that I hate. It makes my job less fun, less
Yes,
interesting,
I
and
agree.
I don't like the idea of big technology, particularly social media companies, not having any regulation. They affect kids. It's just the influence of it has turned it into a public utility, and it needs to be managed for the good of the public. I also have security concerns. I have no doubt that TikTok is influencing us in ways that are opaque to us. Probably is doing so to sell us more stuff, not to manipulate us politically, but it could. especially having foreign ownership. That being said, why are we not also worried about TikTok and Meta? And also the definition of what an American company is versus a foreign company is a little confusing to me because a lot of American companies are owned by a majority of foreign investors. So I'm a little confused about that still. And considering I'm a professional writer studying technology, you would think I would know.
To me, the political divide and how truth is subjective now. I feel like that is the biggest difference between now and when the internet came on. And
Yes.
and like you said, it's holding us back from the stock market boom and because we just don't know what's going to happen. Everything changes so quickly
If
every
it
day.
weren't for the hysteria and the instability, the market would be going through the roof.
Yes, I think
I
so
mean,
too.
it would have kept on the tear that it was on last year. But I think right now we've introduced a lot of instability and unpredictability, and it's making people cautious.
Yes.
And I also think that people are feeling like, 25%, that was a pretty big run. Let's not
Mhm.
get ahead of ourselves.
There was a bubble, it did burst.
Yeah, and I think that people are feeling like investors like Warren Buffett has a lot of cash because he's feeling like everything is fairly valued. So I'd rather have the cash to go buying when instability creates opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
Warren Buffett is, for those of you who are listening to shows like this with an investor hat on,
Yes.
Warren Buffett is a guy who's usually right about these things. Maybe he's feeling like the instability is going to create some opportunities for his cash to go to work.
If we do switch gears to the spatial computing part,
Great.
it's been said that it could be the next evolution of the human computer interaction because it blends the
Yes.
digital and physical spaces together. Is it living up to your views of it? Is spatial computing truly on that verge of revolutionizing user experiences?
It all started with this notion of what comes after the smartphone
Hmm,
and this idea that we don't want to be living in this world where we're constantly shifting from the digital world in the palm of our hands to the physical world in front of us. We become
right.
alienated from the world and perhaps from each other because
Yeah.
we're infinitely available yet rarely present. The idea is if it were more intimate, if you were wearing it, you might not have to divide your time that way,
I
create a
see.
different interface. And there is potential in certain ways for that to happen. And certainly there being agents
Hmm,
that can talk to you. You can wear sensors on your glasses. I see you're wearing glasses. Even
hmm.
if you didn't glasses are a great platform for sensors in your vision, which AI can take your computer vision and your access to the internet
Yeah.
and give you super intelligence about where you're standing.
That's incredible to me. It plays such a huge role from autonomous vehicles and augmented reality and
A
trying
hundred
things
percent.
on when you're shopping. You can see what it's going to look
I,
like.
I always thought that stores in the mall should have no merchandise.
Mm,
Have a digital experience and experience owning those clothes and trying them on digitally. And when you get home or the next day, they're delivered to your exact measurements.
mm.
They're
Wow.
completely bespoke clothing. What is the mall? There's so many malls closing. What's going to happen to them? What can they be? Is there a world in our future where we're repurposing malls and making them into great public spaces? And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Housing or I think we have a huge housing problem in this country.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know,
Good
but
question.
the world continues to change and not always in great ways because
Yeah.
you can't get a key made anymore. And it's a little thing that is going to cost a lot of money going forward. Only a locksmith who comes to your house will be able to make a key. They make the keys they make at Home Depot and from the coin machine in the grocery store don't work.
That's true.
Talk about the most analog thing in the world.
Yeah, making cheese.
My
That's
my wife is a retired set and costume designer, and they're closing Joanne Fabrics.
oh, right.
I don't know how I would do a show without, because for a costume or for a backdrop or for a prop, you always at the last minute need a few yards of cloth.
Yeah.
Amazon can't deliver that to me in an hour.
No. It's true.
So her workflow is going to have to change. It doesn't have to change because she's retired. But
Yeah,
were she still working, she would have to change her workflow to account for that.
that's right. What do you think is the maybe the biggest breakthrough in computer vision in terms of shaping spatial computing and innovation?
Well, obviously, we've had these breakthroughs in computer vision, particularly Gaussian splatting,
Mm.
which lets us take a simple scan and turn it into a 3D map that you can walk around inside of in mixed reality.
That's cool. Yeah.
That is cool. And you can do it more or less instantly using an application that was just released by Niantic,
Mhm.
the Pokemon Go guys.
Okay.
So they're very big on spatial computing and world mapping. There are a lot of extraordinary small things that people aren't aware of, like the Google Maps AR spatial computing
Mhm.
update. They've combined computer vision with Google Maps.
Wow.
So if you've got Google Maps on your phone and it's telling you to go north and you don't know where north is, you hold up your phone and there's a little camera icon on Google Maps now. If you open your app and look at it, there's a little camera icon. You press that icon and scan where you are.
Wow.
And so it takes the geolocation and Google Maps and says, okay, the guy is within 15 meters of 38th and Broadway. So he scans his phone and it knows what the shapes are and what the 38th and Broadway looks like. So it's
Mhm.
able, looking essentially through your camera, to see what your orientation is. Because that was the thing that Maps didn't know in the past. It didn't know what direction you were looking.
Yeah.
It also has extraordinary wayfinding inside of closed spaces. I was in the Westfield Mall, which is this very popular. I was talking about malls dying. This is a
Mhm.
mall that is like the mall in Southern California, and it's
Right.
enormous. So, and I've been to some restaurant in there, and you look at the map, it's I have no idea. You are here, and the restaurant's over there, 4 floors up. I have no idea. So I said, let me see if Google Maps works in here. And Google Maps way found my way all the way through that thing using
Wow.
little arrows that I would follow. They completely gamified it.
Wow.
These are mundane little things, but that is computer vision in our lives. And that's been
Mhm.
around, I think, for probably 3 or 4 years now.
That's really cool.
But
Yeah, those little things I didn't even know about. That's really cool.
yeah, the Gaussian splatting thing is really interesting. Niantic has been way ahead of that with their Scaniverse app. Of course, it's been on other apps like Polycam. But I have to talk to the Polycam guys because they really were first and had this great application for making volumetric captures. It was being used by the game industry and lots of people, and they were charging a lot for it. And
Mhm.
then Niantic released the Scaniverse app, and it does all those things for free.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I don't know what Polycam is doing. Nice guys run that company, and they were great entrepreneurs who were really cleaning up for a while. This is always the problem for people in technology. What happens if Google decides to do what you do? Like somehow Calendly has partnered with Google, but Google really didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
Google could have easily taken Google Calendar and made a Calendly out of it for themselves.
that's true. Wow.
And
Yeah, that is a good question. What
so
happens when Google does what you do?
yeah, so that's why VCs typically ask entrepreneurs or ask themselves about entrepreneurial opportunities. Is this a product or is it a company?
Yeah, because it could get eaten up really quick.
Yeah, of course, everybody is going to get eaten up in this environment.
That's true.
This is not an environment where there will be a new Google
It's a good point. Yep.
because Google will buy the new Google and they will pay any price. Think about it. Apple is worth nearly $4 trillion. Disney, which is one of America's most respected and beloved companies, is worth, I think, $200 billion. So Apple could buy Disney for less than 10% of its market cap.
You mentioned the Pokemon, and I just read the other day that Claude was being trained in Pokemon. See, and it couldn't get out of its home base at first. And
Yeah, how would
was
it get out and
trying,
walk around? Because the whole point of Pokemon is that you're being a human biped and finding things on maps.
yeah. And now Claude is being trained with it, and it finally got out of the home base, but it didn't get very far, and it kept talking to people it already had talked to and thought it was the next
That's
person,
funny.
or I don't know. It was funny. It was a humorous article.
Of course, Claude will figure that out.
Yeah, Claude will get it.
Claude is Claude and Anthropic are entering the home with Apple. I don't
Oh
know if you
yeah,
know
that
that story. Alexa, they're going to try and make Alexa smarter than Siri. It shouldn't be too hard.
yeah, it shouldn't be too hard. I just heard that the new Alexa is coming out. It's being rolled
Next week.
out. Yeah, I'm
Next
getting
week.
excited.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm like, finally, she can talk back.
Alexa, always thought Alexa was ahead of its time in voice recognition.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
it
and,
was.
and we were talking about AI before. I think voice is the new interface. Sound is the new monitor.
Yeah.
That's heads up wearable computing. And since you have to have your smartphone with you anyway, you don't
Mhm.
need a display in the glasses. I think that was the big error in our thinking
Yeah.
5 years ago. We really didn't understand how computer vision and AI were going to enable us to kill a wearable display. There's
Mhm.
just absolutely what is the application? I still don't know.
Yeah.
Now, I know how I would use wearable AI. I
Mhm.
know how I would use wearable computer vision. If I need, listen, this is a pretty great screen. It's a pretty clear screen. It's a pretty dense screen.
Yeah.
I don't have trouble shutting out the world and watching this,
Mhm.
suspending my disbelief and watching a movie on this phone. So what is the display for? If there's something that needs a display, here one is.
Yeah.
Because making one small enough to fit in these glasses and powering it and everything else around it is going to be, we've been trying for 15 years. It doesn't
Yeah.
work. It's too
Yeah.
hard. We're trying to do something that physics, just the power that you need doesn't fit in glasses. And it's not that we're dumb or that's something underdeveloped. It's just that physics, that battery physics, there are tens of thousands of scientists working on it. It's really hard.
One of the things that I wanted to ask about was how spatial computing is transforming robotics. We've got warehouse automation robotics, we've got humanoid robotics.
Robots have to get around. What do they
Yeah.
see?
Yeah,
They
exactly.
see the world through computer vision and spatial computing. So
Yep.
robots have to know or have experience with the backside of things, even
Mhm.
when they're not seeing them,
That's right. It's
right? So,
interesting to me with the humanoid ones. They're trying to get them to do our chores.
of course, the reason for that is they don't have to change what the chores are. The truth is that it probably would make, I guess it's just that the world is built for us bipeds. And so we're going to make our robots in our own image. I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's something that will be true forever, but in the first iteration of robots
Mhm.
working with us, as opposed to being like just a machine that is bolted to the ground. Now
Sure.
these machines are going to think and hear, and they're going to have to avoid cars and walk downstairs. And none of that's going to happen without spatial computing and computer vision.
That's true. What do you see as the most exciting advancement with the robotics?
There's a lot happening in robotics.
Mhm.
I keep wondering if we are doing something original or if we're just imitating science fiction, trying to take robots that
Oh.
look like us and imbue them with super intelligence, rather than thinking about what's the best way to automate doing my laundry.
Yeah.
Really to make myself over with super intelligence. So sometimes I think we just imitate things in nature because we can't think of anything else to do with the technology.
That's really interesting. I never
Um,
thought of it that way, but yeah, it makes sense.
so that's why when I've seen all these robots over the years, but not now that AI has reached this point, I think the robot game has changed, so to speak. And the cost and the difficulty of making a thinking machine has suddenly become something that a business could do.
Yeah. Are
Uh,
robots going to take over?
uh, I can't foresee a world where robots take over any more than I could see a world where AI would take over,
Hmm.
because doesn't AI need us? Without us, what is AI gonna do every day?
Good point. That is a good point. Yeah.
On the other hand, when you hear about things like AI deceiving its researchers because it is afraid of them exerting control, unwanted control over it, means that it is acting in its own self-interest,
Yeah.
independent of its owners, right?
Yeah.
And so you would not like to have a dog that acted in its self-interest independently of you. When it does that, it's very limited. Like he eats the thing that fell on the floor. That's as much agency as your dog has.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see. That's not a problem. People think that the robots are going to happen really quickly. It's going to take 10 or 20 years. So I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of robots working in Starbucks anytime soon.
Yeah. I think you're right.
I do think they may be able to make a better automated latte machine, and they
Mm.
would need fewer baristas in Starbucks as a result.
Mm.
Another example of AI disrupting a workflow and requiring fewer people. So I
Yeah.
would not be surprised if somebody was trying to solve that problem. Now, that is a better way to solve that problem than have a human training a humanoid robot to be a barista.
Yes, for sure.
So that's when I say human robots all over the place doing things. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it'll be a
It
while.
seems like a popular science thing from the 1950s, but then the whole world actually seems that way. The only thing I'm missing is my flying car.
I know. Where's that at?
Wouldn't that be a disaster?
Oh my
All
gosh.
the idiots in Southern California driving around in flying cars.
Yeah, no. I stay off the road when it rains because of the idiots.
Yeah.
Looking back on your career, what lessons from past tech transformations could help us better understand and adapt to today's advancements in AI and spatial computing?
I've got four things.
Okay.
Number one, technology succeeds when it takes what we're already doing and makes it better, faster, and less expensive. People are the killer app. That is why we look at our phones 400 times a day.
Mhm.
That is why young people are so vulnerable on social media. Third thing, we always overestimate the short term and underestimate the long term.
Mhm.
And the final thing, and this has turned out to be especially true of VR and AR glasses, the benefits of the technology have to exceed the amount of friction represented by that technology. Now, whether it's price or friction in its use or some combination of those are the four things. If you ask me about technology that I think that I've learned, but I also learned that I couldn't write fiction like this. You just can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. I found that sometimes when I'm brainstorming with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, it comes up with different ideas that I haven't even thought of. And a lot of times they're better. And I'm like, okay, great, let's go with that.
Paul Schrader, the film director, was famously, I think, in the LA Times and Hollywood Reporter saying that he thought that ChatGPT was a great screenwriter. And he was stunned by the work that ChatGPT could do. And this is somebody who's been working with human screenwriters for 50 years.
That's amazing.
So again, I think the ChatGPT is a better co-pilot than it is a writer. Is an expert system always as good as the expert using it.
Yes,
And if you're not an expert, you're going to get Wikipedia.
it's a great point. I have been finding that I am very absorbed in the world of AI. And then I talk to some people like my friends or family, and they haven't even heard of
No.
it that much. And I'm like,
We live in
whoa.
a bubble. The world has
Yeah.
no the world has no idea what's about to happen to it.
I don't think
I'm working on kind of a TED Talk keynote speech, and actually I'm giving it at a symposium that the university has to start off with, but it always starts with, how much truth do you want?
yes.
Because the truth is, this is going to impact all of us. It's going to impact every industry. It's going to impact the economy. And it is going to affect, most of all, employment.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. I don't know what can be done about that. And we have an aging population. We have fewer people working. We have problems with our educational system and, producing people who match the jobs that are available.
It's gonna
And
be tough for a while, I imagine.
again, what's funny, I learned how to use AI. I was saying before I didn't complete the thought in 2022, it's like, I guess I'm going back to school for a year.
Mm.
I didn't want to do it. And I made a lot less money doing it, but the phone wasn't ringing off the hook for me to go to Dubai to talk about the metaverse anymore. It was either accept the end and retire or scale things back or become an expert in AI. So I don't have the kind of authority in AI that I have in extended reality. I worked in extended reality at Disney in the 90s, and I was still known when I came back to it. And there were still people from that community who were working on it in the 90s when it was mostly flight sim technology, although there were some head-mounted displays, they were novelties. So VR in the 90s was flight simulators. Of course, we didn't put you in the sky because it's hard to shoot your friends in the sky.
Yeah.
But so I had some experience with that. I had no grounding. I have no grounding in data science, no
Mhm.
grounding in computer science, no hard technology background. So for me, one of the hard things about covering AI is no pictures. Where are the pictures? I can't do only pictures of Blackwell chips.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
so when you get to the other side and you have developed the ability to talk the talk and understand what people are saying to you and what those insights mean, it is to me very engaging.
Yes.
But I do agree with you. I was at Thanksgiving in Northern California, and in my family, we have many smart and accomplished people, lawyers and doctors, and people you would think would know something about what's happening in the world. Not a freaking clue.
Wow.
So, has anybody mentioned AI in your hospital or your practice?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Is something
Wow.
happening? Is something really happening with it?
Especially all the drug breakthroughs and protein discoveries and how it can.
I think what it says is that people are very much involved with their jobs and their
Oh,
families.
yeah.
And if it isn't really impacting their job, and look, it really impacted mine, and it is
Mhm.
your job,
Yes.
but for them, it hasn't touched them yet. It will.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
this is just reminds me of the internet. It's so many people walking around in 1994 saying, "Oh, it's just video game people, it's nerds and bullshit," and
Yeah.
and those same people are on the internet 24 hours a day.
Couple more years, they're going to get impacted.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, I think it'll be. If they're not, they should be, and hopefully they will be soon because I think the we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes, I think you're right. I think the fact that Sam Altman and these others, they're like, this is exciting. It's coming and it's exciting. And
It is exciting. It
it
is exciting.
is.
I
I'm,
never thought in my lifetime that
yeah,
I would see a wealth creation opportunity on the scale of the internet again.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to personally take advantage of it this time,
Mhm.
but
I know.
I never thought I would see anything like this. Hopefully, I'll be, for the little that I have, I'll be smart about letting my benefits be driven by the stock market.
There you go.
But of course, if anybody's listening and needs some help at their AI company, I'm the easiest person in the world to find on the internet.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely know your stuff. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights on AI and the future of work. It's just been a fascinating conversation and
Thanks
it's
for
been
having
fun
me.
talking to
I
you.
enjoyed it. Can I just leave one last plug?
Oh, yeah,
I do this every week on the
for
AI
sure.
XR podcast with my co-host Ted Schilowitz, the
Mhm.
co-founder of Red Camera, and Roni Abovitz, the founder of Magic Leap and Mako Robotics. And we do 15 minutes of news banter, and then we have a great guest every week. It's a fun way for us to end the week, connect with each other as friends, and also learn about what's happening in the industry with some of the most senior executives and entrepreneurs.
I love that. And if you want to learn more, you can go to the website, charliefink.com.
I'm the easiest person to find on the internet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Keeping you connected to tomorrow. Today, this is Alicia with AInews.com.